The 2025 Austrian Grand Prix delivered a powerful statement from Lando Norris, a clear message to the rest of the grid and to his own critics that the championship fight is still very much alive. After a painful and very public mistake in Canada just 2 weeks ago, Norris bounced back in the most emphatic way possible. Not just by winning the race, but by beating the man leading the championship, his teammate Oscar Piastri, in a straight fight on track. This wasn't just about pace. It was about pressure. It was about control. And it was about redemption. Coming into Austria, the atmosphere around McLaren was tense. The clash between Norris and Piastri in Montreal had been widely discussed, and Norris had owned up to the error that caused his first DNF of the season. It wasn't just a missed opportunity. It cost him real points in a title battle that's expected to go down to the wire. Piastri left Canada with momentum and a growing championship lead, while Norris had to regroup and reset. And that's exactly what he did. From the first session at the Red Bull Ring, Norris looked sharp. In fact, he topped every session he took part in. He looked determined but composed. The McLaren MCL39 was clearly the car to beat in Austria's hot and demanding conditions. But pole position was just the beginning. At lights out, Norris made a clean getaway from the front row. He immediately moved to cover Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, who had also started on the front row. That left the door open for Piastri, who swept around the outside of Leclerc at turn 1 to slot in his second and set up a fascinating all-McLaren battle for the win. The tension between the two cars was clear from the very beginning, and given their recent history, everyone watching knew this wasn't going to be an easy afternoon. Behind them, the story was over almost before it began for Max Verstappen. The defending world champion was tagged and spun out at turn 3 by Mercedes rookie Kimi Antonelli. It was a costly and clumsy error. Antonelli, caught in a tight battle into the braking zone, misjudged the moment and made contact with the side of Verstappen's Red Bull. That was the end of Verstappen's race, and it may yet be the end of his title hopes. Heading into the halfway point of the season, he now trails the championship lead by 61 points, an enormous gap, even for someone of his ability. From that moment on, it became clear that the fight for victory was going to be a McLaren-only affair. And what a fight it was. On lap 11, the first serious challenge came. Norris had made a couple of small errors through the final corners on the previous lap. It was just enough for Piastri to close the gap and get into DRS range on the long uphill straight into turn 3. Piastri went for the move up the inside and got briefly ahead, but he locked a front brake and ran wide. Norris kept his nerve, stuck close to the racing line, and managed to retake the lead almost immediately on the exit and into turn 4. It was clean, it was aggressive, and it was the kind of wheel-to-wheel action that F1 fans live for. A few laps later, Piastri came again, and this time it was a little too close for comfort. On the run to turn 4, he dove to the inside once more, but again locked up under braking. For a moment, it looked like the McLarens were about to repeat the Montreal disaster in reverse. Fortunately, there was no contact, but the tension on the pit wall and in the garage was obvious. McLaren's race engineer quickly got on the radio to tell Piastri that the team viewed the move as too marginal and that it couldn't happen again. After that warning, things calmed slightly. Norris was pitted first and rejoined in clear air. Piastri stayed out for 3 more laps before making his stop. That offset gave each driver some breathing space through the middle phase of the race, but once traffic came into play, the pressure was back on. There was a nervous moment for Piastri when he was nearly pushed onto the grass by a lapped Franco Colapinto. The stewards reviewed the incident and handed Colapinto a 5-second penalty. But the time Piastri lost there was critical. It robbed him of a final chance to get back into DRS range. And while he did close the gap again in the closing stages, he never got close enough to launch another attack. Norris kept his focus, managed his tires, and crossed the line to claim his 3rd win of the season. For Norris, this was more than just 25 points. It was about momentum. It was about reminding everyone, including his own teammate, that he's not going anywhere in this title fight. He now trails Piastri by just 15 points heading into Silverstone, his home race. After the race, Norris was honest. We had a great battle, that's for sure. It was a lot of fun. For me, a lot of stress, but a lot of fun. It was tough, especially when he was in DRS. Once I broke the gap, I could manage things pretty well. But he was still quick. Piastri was equally open. It was intense. I hope it was good watching because it was pretty hard work from the car. I try my absolute best. I probably could have done a better job when I got ahead momentarily. It was a good battle. A bit on the edge at times, and probably pushed the limits a bit far. Behind the McLarens, Ferrari had reason to be satisfied. Charles Leclerc finished third, 9 seconds behind the leaders, and secured his 4th podium of the season. It wasn't a race-winning performance, but it was a much-needed result for Ferrari in a year where consistency has been hard to find. Lewis Hamilton, still chasing his first podium since joining Ferrari, finished 4th. His opportunity will now shift to Silverstone. George Russell came home 5th, but it was a lonely and frustrating race for Mercedes. The team that won in Canada was nowhere near the podium this time, with Russell over 30 seconds behind Hamilton and nearly a full minute behind the race winner. The hot Austrian conditions once again exposed the car's struggles with tire degradation and rear grip. Liam Lawson delivered a standout performance for Racing Bulls in 6th. His consistency and pace are quietly building a case for a long-term future in F1. Behind him, Fernando Alonso held off his own protege, Gabriel Bortolito, in a late fight for 7th. Bortolito, who is managed by Alonso, still had plenty to be proud of after scoring his first ever F1 points. The Brazilian rookie has impressed all weekend, and this result will surely boost his confidence and profile. Nico Hülkenberg made it a double points finish for Sauber, climbing from last on the grid to 9th. It was a brilliant recovery drive and a rare bright spot in what has been a difficult season for the team. Rounding out the points was Esteban Ocon, who edged out Alex Albon and Ollie Behrman in a tight battle for 10th. It was a brutal race for Red Bull, with Verstappen out on lap 1 and Tsunoda enduring a nightmare afternoon that included multiple contacts and a time penalty. The team failed to score any points on home soil. Tsunoda ended the race 2 laps down in last place. The contrast with their past dominance at this venue could not have been starker. This was a Grand Prix that shifted the narrative in several ways. First, it reminded everyone that McLaren is now the team to beat. Their pace, their tire management, and their operational precision are at the top of the field. Second, it solidified the internal title battle between Norris and Piastri, a contest that looks increasingly like it will define the rest of the season. And third, it raised serious questions about Red Bull's ability to recover from this slump, particularly when Verstappen isn't able to carry the team on his own. The 2025 season has been one of unexpected twists and evolving storylines. And as we now head to Silverstone, there is more at stake than just another 25 points. For Norris, it is a homecoming with momentum. For Piastri, it is a chance to prove he can hit back. For Ferrari, it is another opportunity to deliver a breakthrough. And for Red Bull, it may be a defining moment in a season that is slipping away. Hello, McLaren faithful. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you never miss any McLaren and F1 updates with relaxing ASMR elements. Your support helps this incredible community grow stronger every day, and it's a small effort that goes a long way. Even if you can't contribute in other ways, it's completely free to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to keep the conversation going and share our passion for McLaren and F1. Your support helps keep the community thriving. Thank you for being part of McLaren Faithful.